Good morning and welcome to Create Explosive Sales Results in 2026. My name is Joe Beck, founder of The Sales Activist, and I am super excited to be here with everybody. So I'm gonna jump right in. Let's get started. So let me just get my screen going here and we will get started. So all right. Welcome to Create Explosive Sales Results in 2026. My name is Joe Beck, founder of The Sales Activist, and I'm going to take a quick minute to tell you what qualifies me to be sitting here talking about all this with you. It's going to be the fastest part of our session today. We're going to go through this really, really quick. I have over 36 years of sales experience working with everything from Fortune 50s all the way down to solopreneurs. I've personally produced over $500 million in sales revenues for companies that I've worked with and for. I've led sales teams as large as 200 salespeople in the field actively. I've personally coached, trained, and mentored over 3,500 sales professionals and entrepreneurs, and I'm a high-ticket sales coach and strategist. Now, I say all of that to share with you one thing. There's nothing that special about me. I've spent 36 years perfecting the craft, working on this. I'm still learning every single day more about sales. I just have a lot of experience. I have made more mistakes than most people have tried things in sales. And along the way, those mistakes have taught me things that have had a significant impact on my success and the success of the people that I've worked with. So let's dive right into what we want to talk about. I wanted to make sure that as much of this hour as possible was going to be all about relevant content that was going to help you guys get explosive sales in 2026. So who is this for? Let's start with that. Who is this particular live stream, this information, the stuff that I'm going to share today? Who is this for? And let's break that down. So first off, if you're an entrepreneur, a coach, a consultant, or anybody really selling a high ticket offering, a product, a service, something that is high ticket, you're going to get a lot out of this time. There is a lot of information here that's going to help you significantly in these categories. And also, if you're somebody who struggles with how to kind of wrap your head around sales and what specifically you should be thinking about and focusing on, well, we're going to talk about that as well. So, if you're an entrepreneur, coach, consultant, selling high ticket, today's live stream is going to share a lot of information with you that's going to help you move your sales forward. So for today, though, it's all about making sure that we get ourselves set up to have our best year ever in 2026. Explosive sales, significant momentum, just moving forward in a way that we want to move forward in sales. So let's start with 4 basic steps. And we're going to talk about this in a very direct, straightforward manner. So there are 4 basic steps to create an explosive sales year. And there's a lot of little pieces of each step, but we're going to break it down to 4 basic steps. Now, I want to start here because I think this is a place that most people do a really, really poor job at the beginning of the year. And it's what I call taking out the trash. Taking out the trash. At the end of the year, you have a sales funnel, a carryover funnel, prospects, a whole bunch of stuff that carries over from last year. Some of it might be viable. Most of it probably isn't, but let's just paint the picture. Let's make sure everybody understands why I am sharing this, particularly in this order. When I say take out the trash, I mean, we're talking about your sales pipeline. Now, I am not saying that everything in your sales pipeline is trash. I'm not saying deleting the whole pipeline. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is it's time to take out the trash, the stuff that shouldn't be in there, that's kind of just carried over and lingered for quite a long time. And let's talk about what that time looks like right now. Here we sit on January 24, 2026. We're almost the first month into the year already, yet people are looking at old prospects, old proposals, people that they talked to back in September, October, November, and it's just kind of lingered. Now, let's talk about this time period in particular, why this is an important step right now. Because for a lot of people in their business, once you hit the holiday season, things slow down a bit. People move into holiday mode. They're not as active in work, November into December, and certainly between December and the, second week of December and the end of the year, things slow down quite a bit for many, many industries. And for a lot of people, it's changed their direction or their focus of what they are looking at, what they're working on, what's most important to them. That shift towards the holiday season, family, and all that comes with that just aligns the focus differently for people. So here we come into January, and it's January 24th already, yet some of the people that are in our pipeline are people we haven't spoken with since before the holidays, and we're still considering them somebody who might be a viable prospect for what we do. Now, I am not saying that they are not. I am saying now is the time for you to use a critical eye and update your sales pipeline and make sure that you remove any old prospects that you haven't spoken with or had a positive, productive interaction with in the last 60 days. Now, I know that there are people that are listening to this call, especially if you're selling high ticket, that may have a longer sales cycle, and that sales cycle could be a lot longer than 60 days. I'm not saying these people disappear. I'm not saying you give up on them. I'm saying let's be realistic about where we are. Let's be honest with ourselves. Let's make sure that we are being genuine and really looking at things through a fresh set of eyes, to kick off the year the right way. Because for a lot of people, they struggle and fail and carry over the same mistakes that they were making in the previous year into the new year. And that first mistake that they make many times is living off of that legacy pipeline that they brought into the new year. And again, I'm not saying that everything in that pipeline is not going to be a productive potential client for you, a prospect. I'm saying it's time to look at them very, very closely and ask yourself honestly if they really are. If you haven't spoken to them in 60 days and it's been since prior to the holidays and you just don't know where they are, what's important to them, everything could have changed. It's not right for you to look at them as a viable prospect right now without re-engaging them. So I call it taking out the trash. At the end of the holidays, you got a big pile of trash that needs to go out, right? You need to get it out of the house, move on so you can move forward with your new year. Well, it's the same with your sales pipeline. Now, why do we start here? Because if you don't level set this and you don't correct this and get this to the right place in what you're going to do in the new year, you will be starting from a false sense of security. You'll be starting from a place where you think you are better off than you actually are. You'll kid yourself into thinking that you're in good shape. You somehow, whether you acknowledge it or not, you somehow will probably make some type of psychological adjustment as to what you're doing or not doing. Maybe do a little less because you look at that pipeline and feel proud of yourself, or maybe you feel like you don't have to rush or move forward because you've got these things sitting there. Well, I'm going to tell you that you may not. And if you don't get real about that right now, as soon as possible, you put yourself in a very dangerous situation. This carries over into the new year, and it could basically bleed over into impacting this current sales year. So you want to make sure that you use a critical eye to take out that trash. Make sure that those prospects that shouldn't be in there are removed. Now, I'm not saying you remove them completely. I'm saying you put them into a category of where they really probably should be. Maybe they aren't really a viable prospect right now because there's not a time-sensitive, very specific need or want that they want to address in the very near term. It's something that is a hope or a desire for down the road. And too many times people put themselves in a really bad place sales-wise because they really anticipate something or hoping that something is there that really isn't. Like the old adage in the book, hope is not a strategy. It isn't. You can't rely on hope. Now, I am hopeful all the time, but I'm realistic when it comes to my sales pipeline because it's important that I'm working with viable information that is something I can work on today. Now, for those people that you remove from your pipeline, when I say take out the trash, let's not completely get rid of it. Let's make sure we put it off to the side and re-nurture them, re-engage them, get them to the place where they are, again, viable for where we are. Now, two really important things that you really should do in this process, and I'm just going to lay it out for you. The first is be honest with yourself about this. Truly be honest. try to remove yourself from the emotion of how badly you may want, need, desire that business, and just be honest with yourself and say, is this really something that I can count on? If I had to bet my life that this was something that could happen here in the near term, am I willing to do that? Because if you can't do that, I'm going to tell you, it probably isn't as real as you think it is. So be honest with yourself. Now, if it's not today, it doesn't mean it's not a viable opportunity for you. It just means you've got to go do some work on it again. You've got to re-engage them. You've got to nurture them. You've got to get them back to the place where they are viable. Look, I've worked with thousands of sales professionals and entrepreneurs over the years, thousands. And one of the major mistakes that I've seen people make is this false sense of security with their pipeline. In fact, people used to tease me in my corporate days that they would call me the pipeline doomsayer. Like everything that was in their pipeline, I was just super critical about. Now, it wasn't that I wanted to be critical. It was that I wanted to be real. And I wanted to make sure that the people that I was working with, the people that I was trying to help succeed, the people that I was responsible for were being real as well. So the second part of this, which is really important, and I don't care if it's me or anybody else, you should really engage some type of an accountability partner in this process. Now, I'm going to tell you that partner could be an actual business partner. It could be a spouse. It could be somebody that you work with, trust, somebody that you have a good relationship with. Could be a coach, could be anybody, but you really should have an accountability partner. Now, I'm not saying that partner has to be there the entire process, but at the beginning of the year, especially, have a conversation, break some things out with somebody and run it by them. Make sure that you aren't overly emotional and overly committed to something that just really isn't there. You want to make sure of that. It's important to your success. Now, the next step in this process of taking out the trash is getting real about creating a new high value target list of what I call suspects that you can engage, nurture, and add to your pipeline. Now, it's possible that some of the people that were in your pipeline last year do make it onto this new list, but you want to make sure that you're adding new blood into that process. People that maybe you hoped you had reached out to but haven't yet, that dream client, that ideal high ticket prospect, whoever it is, that really big prospect, write them down and add them to your list. Now, I want you to understand when I say this, I don't want you to overly qualify them yet. I want you to just think big and work down. Think big and work down. What do I mean by that? I mean, it's very easy in most businesses to analyze who your dream client is, that unicorn, that business that you really wish you could get. And then it's easy to analyze the low-hanging fruit, the stuff that you could absolutely get that is probably more realistic. I want you, at the beginning of the year especially, to not sell yourself short. Don't give up on those dream clients. Don't give up on those unicorns. Don't give up on those game-changing clients that could change everything to you. Now, I'm not saying only focus on them. Don't do that. I'm saying think big, write them down, and work your way down the list. Start high. Now, what happens with most people, and this is another thing that I've analyzed and worked through for many years with people, most of the time, they are, to some degree, a little intimidated about those dream clients, those dream suspects to add into their pipeline, the people that are their ideal client. They will put down anything on the lower end, the low-hanging fruit, the thing that they feel comfortable about going after because it feels easier. It feels more comfortable. There tends to be a lot more of them. Their pipeline will fill with that. And, over 36 years, I've noticed something about high achievers, including, myself across my career. My best sales years were when I would look at what I was working on and I'd look at my pipeline, and I'll go back and I'll look at old pipelines sometimes, and I'll analyze and look at some of those dream clients that I put in there, those ideal larger prospects, those moonshot type opportunities. Now, again, we're going to keep it real. We're not only going to have a list of those, but we're going to make sure we include them. Don't sell yourself short. Don't make the mistake of not including them in that process after you've taken out the trash. Because what happens for some people, if they go through this, let's say you follow exactly what I tell you to do right here, and you take out the trash and you clean up your pipeline and you put yourself in a spot where now you are level set, ready to go, gearing up the engine to make sure you have a massive year in 2026. And then you go back and you put people in your new pipeline, your new list, the stuff that's coming in that is a watered down version of your potential, because it seems easier. Because you naturally look at what you just did, the process of removing all of that business from your pipeline, the trash, so to speak, and you feel like you have to go back and replenish it. And you do, but don't sell yourself short in the process. Don't give up on those larger opportunities. Somebody is talking to them. Somebody is reaching out to them. Somebody is proposing them, solving their problems, and working with them. It should be you. But if you don't think big, if you don't include them in that process when you are building your high value target list, I promise you, you won't get to them. You just won't. If you don't at least identify them, at least start moving in that direction, and don't even put them on a list, you're going to miss out on most of those opportunities. Now, I'm not saying you won't eventually get to them. I'm saying you could be getting to them now. You could. Don't sell yourself short. Think big, work down, and your pipeline will again start moving in the right direction. But it starts with taking out the trash and making sure that you've done that the right way. Now, I want to move into step number 2, and this is a really, really important one. Some people may say that it is a little late to be talking about this because it's already January 24th. I'm telling you, it's the ideal time to be talking about this, because you know what's happened now? After the first couple of weeks of the month, people are finally waking up and saying, oh my goodness, the year, we're already done with the first month. I have to get serious. The holiday hangover is over. A lot of people, that first full week of the year, it's just easing back into it. That second week, things start building up again. But now it's real. Now we're back in action, working towards our goal. Now's the ideal time to make sure, if you haven't done it already, that you should set what I call a stretch year-end goal. A stretch year-end goal. Now, what is a stretch year-end goal, right? Well, I'm going to tell you in the very, very first line here on this slide what it is. It's your highest ever in your business and in your experience. Now, I don't know about you, but I believe in infinite opportunity, abundance, and the opportunity to continue to grow and develop as you move forward. I think it works the same in sales. But for some reason, people self-sabotage themselves by doing a few things that, whether they realize it or not, just organically holds them back from greater success. And that comes in the form of your goal planning. Some people will say, okay, well, last year we did $500,000 in sales, or $1 million in sales, or $2 million in sales. Let's make sure we set our goal at least that. At least that is the exact wording that people will use. And maybe this is you. And if it is, I hope I'm not rubbing you the wrong way or giving you that impression. But I'm telling you, you are putting yourself in a very challenging situation, because for most people, when they start saying, well, if I can at least get to this, or if I can get a minimum of this, if I can get to what I did last year, I will feel okay. Okay. And that is just a pathway to settling. It's a pathway to leaving yourself short. Your starting point should be one where you are stretching yourself. If you don't do that, what do you think you're going to do? You're going to make concessions. You're going to tell yourself it's okay. Okay. Yeah, I had a goal of $1 million, but I did well. I did $595,000. That sounds great, right? But that sounds like just under only 60% of your goal. Like, set a realistic stretch goal for yourself. It should be the highest ever in your business. Now, I don't mean your industry, because there's other people out there doing what you do more than likely. I mean for you and your business. If you're a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, if you own a business, Set a goal every year that's better than what it has ever been before. Set the right tone for the year. Put yourself in the right place. Set yourself up for success. It should be the highest ever in your business and in your experience. Don't go backwards, okay? You should never go backwards. You should document and share this goal with people that you value, whether they are teammates, whether they are employees, whether they are partners, spouses, friends, anybody that you value. Share that goal. Why? Because when you share that goal, it becomes even more real to you. If you tell people, I want to go out and make $1 million in sales this year, guess what? You are drawing a line and stating what you are going to go do, and now you need to go do it. But if you don't ever share that goal, it's very much like writing it down for yourself. If you don't document it, some people mention their sales goal once at the beginning of the year, and they never go back to it. Like for me, I'll write it down. I'll have it everywhere. I want to know and be reminded over and over and over again what that goal is. And I want to share that with the people I value. If I've got an objective and I want to make sure that I get to that objective, and I've got people helping me with that objective, whether it's teammates, partners, employees, whatever, I want to share it. I want them seeing it, looking at it, knowing it. You know, when I worked in teams, when I led teams and organizations, I would put that out there from a sales standpoint, especially in high production, high volume sales environments. That number was in front of everybody. They all knew what it needed to be. And they all knew what it needed to be for them individually, what their part was. And that's important for you personally as well. If you want to have an explosive sales year, start the right way. Set yourself up with a stretch year-end goal. If you don't do that, you are going to put yourself behind the 8 ball. You're not going to get to where you want to go because you don't even have a roadmap yet. You don't even know what the destination is. You haven't been realistic about it. Okay? You also, and this is a really, really important step. It's another one where people fail. In fact, I will tell you, of the thousands of people that I've worked with, probably 50% of the people that I've worked with and helped in sales have made this mistake, this next mistake. They didn't effectively reverse engineer the activity level they needed to get to that sales goal. And here's what I mean. If you know you have a sales goal, and whatever that goal is, you can write that number down. You need to reverse engineer all of the necessary activity level to get to that goal. If you have a destination, don't you need a roadmap? Don't you need guide points? Don't you need benchmarks to get to that destination? You know, how boring would GPS be if you plugged in an address and it didn't tell you where to go? It didn't tell you what direction to take. It didn't tell you what you needed to do, what speed you needed to be at to get there by a certain time, right? It just wouldn't work. You wouldn't get there. Here I am, there that is, and there's nothing getting me there. There's no checkpoint, there's no guidepost, right? You need to reverse engineer the activity level that is going to get you to your goal. And here's how this needs to be broken down. And I want to tell you, I'm going to put this out to everybody so you understand this. If you do this next thing I'm going to talk about very, very well, and you really, really detail this, you're going to be wildly successful. You're going to be wildly successful. If you struggle doing this, you're going to struggle. If you struggle doing this and you're doing it by yourself, you need to get help. Get help on it, because this is an important thing I'm going to tell you. When you reverse engineer your activity level, you need to be as detailed and specific as possible. And here's what this looks like. If you know your sales goal is $1 million, you need to figure out, first off, what your average revenue per client is, right? That's a number, whatever it is, you write that number down. Then you need to figure out, okay, how many people will I need to speak to as viable prospects, people that need, want, desire, and have to have my service? How many people do I need to speak to get to that number? Okay. If it's, 10,000, you need to know how many of them you need to get to 1 million, right? You need to do that math. And then you need to figure out, of the people that I speak to, how many of them will actually buy? So I need to build in a factor. Maybe that factor is 1 out of 3. Maybe that factor is 1 out of 5, 1 out of 10. I don't know. It's different with each industry, a little bit different with each person. But the better you understand what those metrics and ratios are, the more likely you are to be successful. So if you know that 1 out of every 10 people you speak to is going to turn into a client, well, then you need to know to get to 1 client, you need to speak to 10 people. Too many times people plan it out like, well, I need to get 100 clients in a year. I need, whatever that number is per week, per month, I need to break it down. That's exactly what it is. But then they don't take it far enough. They don't tell themselves, how much actual activity do I need to do to generate that? To generate those conversations, to generate those people, to generate those prospects. It's easy to do the math on, okay, I have a sales goal. Here's the number. I get this much per client. I need this many clients based upon that ratio, but that's not enough. Where people fail in this is they don't take it to the detail that they need to. How many phone calls they're making, how many emails they're making, how many appointments turn into proposals. Like, you need to analyze and break down all of the ratios that get you to your goal. If you don't do this, you will inevitably not do enough to reach your objective. Now, I am not talking about you fundamentally going out there and hitting a couple of home runs, getting lucky sometimes, because that happens. I'm talking about building a mechanism for understanding your business and getting to your goal. If you want to have an explosive sales year and you're setting a stretch goal for yourself, you've got to build a viable plan to make it happen. You have to truly have the pieces in place, doing the necessary activity to get there. Now, along the way, and here we are, again, January 24th, we're almost the first full month into the year. You need to make monthly adjustments to realign with your goal. See, things will change throughout the year. January may be a great year for you. February may be flat. March may be spectacular again. Like, all of these things need to be accounted for and adjusted when you look at your goals. Make monthly adjustments to realign your goal. Now, here is one that's super important, and I'm going to tell you why in a second, pun intended. To get to your goal, your stretch goal, most people need the proper motivation. They need a very detailed and passionate why to get there. Like, why is it important to you? Is it because you want to provide for your family? Is it because you want to reach a certain retirement goal? Is it because you want to take care of your children's college? Is it because you want to be the first person in your family to reach a certain threshold? It doesn't matter what the why is. You just need to have one. And here's the trick about whys. Whys need to be money agnostic. And what I mean is, it can't just be about the money. It can't. Your why needs to be personal and emotional to you. And the reason is, if you make your goal all about just money, and again, this is not my opinion. This is based on thousands of people that I've worked with in sales, business development, both in the corporate world and individually. If your goals are tied exclusively to money, the odds of you reaching them are less. Now, why do I say that? That's a pretty bold statement, right? It's because there isn't enough of a motivating factor to get you through the tough parts. It's not personal enough. It doesn't mean enough. See, if you have $1 million sales goal, and I think it's a great goal. If you have $1 million sales goal, but you make $800,000, are you going to lose any sleep? No, you're going to feel good, right? It's a great result. And you put in whatever number works for you, both on the goal and the result. But what I'm saying is, if it's only tied to the money, you will inevitably be satisfied with a concession. You'll inevitably accept less. And I know this because across my career, I've had this conversation hundreds and hundreds of times with people. Oh my gosh, Joe, I had a great year. I earned it was $492,000 in commissions. It was my best year. I'm like, great. What was your goal? Oh, my goal was 750,000. So what happened to that person? And I'm thinking of a particular person. And the numbers are accurate, by the way. This person particularly is somebody I worked with many years ago, but stay in touch with. And they remember this conversation too. So when I share this story, I know they're not upset by me sharing it, but their goal was like $750,000 for the year. And they did just under 500,000. It was their best year ever sales-wise. And they were thrilled. And when we had the conversation about it, what it turned into was a realization that somewhere along the way, they knew where they were, they saw the track they were on, and they accepted less. They accepted less at that time. And when we had this conversation, I said to them, so I know we had this conversation at the beginning of the year, what's changed? And they were like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, I know when we talked about this, you gave me a very, very specific why. And I reminded them what it was. I shared it with them. And they said, I at first thought that this why was enough for me. It was something that was important enough for me. And I realized mid-year that it wasn't. So my feedback to them was maybe you needed to relook at a new why, because it defaulted to the money. And in that case, they just weren't capable of making up where they were. They were happy, wasn't the year that they were hoping to have, but they were still happy. Now, obviously, nobody's going to lose any sleep over earning $500,000 in a sales environment. But here's the lesson. That person later on made adjustments. That person later on defined their why more specifically. That person lived, breathed, and focused on that why, not the money, the why. They realized that getting to that goal, getting to that objective, gave them what they needed to satisfy the why, and they tied the two together. And from that point on, they never missed the goal. They still make their goals. And the reason is their why is what drives them. It's not the money. If it's money, you will always make concessions. There's no question about it. Okay, we're going to move into step 3. Step 3 for an explosive sales year. And this is one that is really, really broad. So I'm gonna streamline this. I'm gonna make it as simple as possible. We're gonna take something that's a really complex issue and we're gonna boil it down to about 10 minutes, and we're gonna make it as streamlined and as straightforward as possible. Step number 3 to have an explosive sales year is you need to simplify and maximize your CAS. Simplify and maximize your CAS. Now, the first question that some people may have, and if you follow me or you've been working with me or you know me, you already know this, but for the people that don't, your CAS is your client acquisition system. Okay. Now, this live stream is not about detailing client acquisition systems. It's not about getting into all of that, because there is an infinite amount of different ways of acquiring clients. All I'm saying is, whatever system you use, however you go about identifying prospects, however you go about getting to them, you need to simplify it and maximize it. Simplify it and maximize it. Your client acquisition system should be scalable and repeatable. Now, in a world of infinite technology, AI, automations, all of the tools and resources that are available to us, scalability and repeatability is a lot easier. But here's the trick. In high ticket sales, especially service related high ticket sales, things that involve very, very significant relationships, you can scale and repeat certain component pieces of your client acquisition system, right? There are certain pieces that you can scale and repeat very easily. You can now get an AI to book appointments. You can get an AI to do follow-ups, confirm appointments. It can do everything. But at some point, you need to step into that relationship, into that engagement, into that process, and take ownership of it on a personal level, right? It needs to be human. If you're going to sell high ticket, absolutely, you need to be human. Now, I'm not in any way taking anything away from the amazing technology that's in the world today and all the tools and resources that are available to us. I think for some of it, it is spectacular for lower value sales, lower ticket items. You know, you can generate a true revenue generating engine for transactions. I don't define that as selling. I don't define that as sales, because to me, yes, it would be great if you have a machine, it's running, it's automatic, and it's generating low ticket sales. But at some point, if you're going to move up market, if you're going to sell higher ticket, if you're going to have an engagement that at a different level, you need to put the human in the process. And I'm not saying it has to be you. I'm saying there does need to be a human in the process. You're probably not going to sell a $10,000, $20,000, or $100,000 contract without some human interacting with another human to make sure that they are moving forward. So when it comes to your CAS, I don't care what you do. I care that it's scalable and repeatable, and that it's intentional and client-centric. Now, let's take a step back real quick before we get off of CAS and just dig into this a little bit. Your CAS could be something as simple as, I call 10 people every day that I know meet my criteria. I try to get an appointment with them, and if I can, I get on a Zoom call or I meet them face to face. I learn what their needs are, and if I can help them, I do. Could be as simple as that. Could be as complex as, I'm running 3 funnels to multiple automations that are filling my calendar to get on one-on-one conversion calls to talk about what it is they do. It could be a really comprehensive system. You could have paid campaigns, you could have referral sources, you could have all of these things coming at you and sending leads your way, and that's great. It's all part of a client acquisition system. But see, here's the thing. If you don't think through all those component pieces, if you don't think through what that system is, what it's made up of, you know, some people go into sales very reactively. They aren't proactive about what they really need to have and what they need to be doing. So one of my first mentors, and he might actually be listening to this. If he is, he'll laugh when I say this. He used to say to me, and he meant it jokingly, but I now realize he also was serious about it, is he used to say, Joe, you know, don't overthink this. Dumb it down. Sales is about making calls, seeing people, and solving problems. You reach out to people, you make calls, you connect with them. You see them at some point and you solve problems for them. That's it. It's pretty straightforward. Don't overthink it. And that's very, very true. At its core, at its basic element, that's what sales is. Make calls, see people, solve problems. Now, you can insert different pieces to that, you know, satisfy needs instead of solving problems. Like you could define it any way you want. The wording can change, but that's really what it is. Making calls, seeing people, solving problems. But some people, they just think that those people are going to find them. Hey, I'm going to run ads, or I'm going to post on social media 4 times a day, and I'm going to hope that the right people find me. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. And I'm not in any way talking down about one path or another path, or your path is your own. I don't care what the path is. I care that you need to have one. Some people go into sales without a defined path. They don't know what works for their business. They don't understand how to change when it doesn't work. They keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. It's not scalable. You know, you may have a path that works, but it may not be scalable. Like if your path is, I'm going to get in a car and I'm going to drive 30 miles to get to a densely populated area of businesses, and I'm going to knock on doors and I'm going to meet enough people there to generate enough prospects, to generate enough clients, to generate my sales goal. That may work for a while, but is that scalable? Can you really do that 10 times more, 5 times more, 25 times more, whatever the number is? No, it's not scalable. You can't do it. Now, could you scale it to a degree? Yes, you could pay somebody else to do that. You could have multiple people doing that. Yes, it's scalable to a degree, but it's not necessarily easily scalable. So your client acquisition system needs to be that. I also believe that it needs to be very, very intentional. Very intentional. You need to be very focused around specifically what your intent is in your client acquisition system. Sometimes in today's world, we know we need to do certain things, but we don't understand why. And we don't understand the impact that it has. Content creators get it. There's branding content. There is content designed to generate a certain response. There's call to actions. They get it. But the average person from a sales standpoint doesn't understand the intentionality that they need to have in whatever system that they use. But here's the trick. And this is, I even hate using the word trick because it's not a trick. It's being genuine. The number one thing that you can do, whatever it is to be client-centric. None of this matters. How great you are at what you do, the amazing tools and resources that you provide, the service, the offering, none of that matters if you're not client-centric. Here's what I mean. For most people, sales is something that makes them a little uncomfortable. Some people think that they're actually naturally born salespeople. There aren't. There are people that are naturally more outgoing, but sales is something that you learn and you get comfortable with, and you get more comfortable with experience. And, over time, you get more effective with that same experience. But the one thing that people do that sends them the wrong way when it comes to sales is when they forget why they are there doing what they're doing. They get so wrapped up in the goal, so wrapped up in their needs, their own desires, the revenue they need to generate, the commissions they need to earn, the lifestyle they want to have. They think all about that. And they forget that the way they get there is to satisfy their client. Solving problems, right? So you need to keep that in mind. And here's the one thing that people forget when it comes to their client acquisition system. And this happens all the time. Oh my gosh, this happens all the time. You always have to remember one thing when it comes to your client acquisition system. And that, now I'm not talking about the automation. I'm not talking about the technical side. I'm talking about you and your prospect, the person that you're going to talk to about what you do, the needs that you're going to solve, all of that. You always remember and have to remember this. Always remember to engage. Engage, right? So there he is, Jean-Luc Picard, Star Trek, The Next Generation, Star Trek Picard, right? The one thing that he said in most episodes, right, certainly in The Next Generation, was engage. When they were ready to go somewhere and do something and make something happen, engage. That was what he said to his team on the Enterprise. Now, why do I mention that now, right? Despite the fact that I'm a Star Trek fan, I'm mentioning it simply because this is the one word that you need to remember more than anything else when it comes to your client acquisition system. Engage. Engage people. Talk to them. Get to know them. Learn their needs, their desires, their wants. Engage. Now, too many times in today's world, we aren't client-centric, and we are in such a rush, in a hurry, and in a noisy, crowded world that we don't even engage. I jokingly call it the FTE syndrome, failure to engage. We don't engage people enough. I go through this. There are times when I do that. I find myself doing things overly repetitively and doing this, doing that. Some of it gets automated. Some of it doesn't get automated. And I realize, oh my gosh, I'm not engaging. I have to engage. how is this going to get better if I don't engage, right? And I want you to remember that word, engage, because it's critical to your success. And now I want to talk about step 4 for an explosive sales year, because this is one that holds back a lot of people. This is a mistake that a lot of people make, that they struggle with getting on track from time to time. And that is simplifying your sales process. Simplifying your sales process. Now, here's the thing that's funny. When you look around the world we live in today, there are endless resources to learn about almost anything you may want to learn about that exists today. And here's what it does to the average person. Those endless resources, those tools, all of those things that are out there, the technology, the videos, the content, all of this overwhelms people. And they find themselves, from a business standpoint, overly complicating their sales process. Overly complicating their sales process. And the problem with that is the more complicated you make it, the less effective it will be. The less effective it will be. You need to follow the same process every time. I know some people may question that. I'm telling you, you shouldn't. You follow the same process every time. It may seem different from the outside looking in, but you follow the same process every time. And why? So you can stay on track, so you don't get sidetracked, so you don't lose momentum, so you don't get pulled away from the desired outcome. Your sales process, your simplified sales process, should include impact-focused questions leading to an emotional state for your prospect. Okay? I had a conversation with a guy last week. Great guy, known him for a little while, finally reached out and said, hey, I want to pick your brain on some sales stuff. I'm like, absolutely. And I said, let's jump on a call, and I want you to walk me through your last couple of sales calls. We got on a call, and what he shared was that his conversations were very one-directional. He was pitching his product. He was telling him what it would do. He was talking about all the benefits, all the features, all this other stuff. And I told him at the beginning, I want you to tell me everything that happened in the call. And he did. And what we uncovered was he wasn't asking impact-focused questions. He wasn't leading his prospect to an emotional place for them to make a decision. He was just product dumping and feature dumping on them. It's like, here it is. Here, this is what it can do. Oh, you have a problem? This can do that. Oh, you need this? This can do that. It was just one directional, very, very focused that way. And I explained to him this simple point. And I want to share this because I've shared this in many forums, environments, with clients, with prospects, with friends. You know, when you're closing somebody, when you're talking to somebody about sales and you're trying to get them to make a buying decision, there are distinct phases that they are in the process. And you could define them differently. Here's how I define them. There's a neutral phase, an engaged phase, and an emotional phase about what you're talking about. Neutral phase, pretty straightforward. There's no emotional connection to it. You're exchanging data. There isn't anything there that's really kind of caught their eye. The engaged phase is where they see value in it. Makes a lot of sense. Pretty straightforward. Sometimes people will buy in the valued phase when they're engaged. But where people mostly buy is in the emotional stage, when they understand the impact of what it may do for them, when they really understand it. If you're offering something that's going to change their financial stability, talk about what that looks like. What would impact be for them? If you're offering something that gives them peace of mind, talk about how they feel. What would that look like? Ask them questions about that. But too many times people complicate that process. And if you really want to have explosive sales results, you gotta strip it down, make it simple. Make it straightforward. Make calls, see people, solve problems. But when you get to that problem phase, talk about the impact. Explore the emotion, because that's where people buy. See these arrows on the side of this inverted pyramid? Well, those arrows are pointing to what I call the impact line. Your closing percentage is more than double when you're above the impact line. They are half that below the impact line. Why? Because your prospect isn't in an emotional state. They're not ready to buy. They're not really understanding how it would impact their life and why it would mean a lot to them. You've got to walk them through that. You have to ask impact-focused questions in the sales process. Now, this could be and could seem to be a complicated process to some people, but it really isn't. It really isn't. It's all about making sure that you get them to an emotional state so they understand how it will impact them. The more they think about it, the more you make them talk about it, the more they will want to have it. I'm going to say that again. The more they think about it and the more you make them talk about it, the more they will want to make it happen. And there you are to be able to help them with it. Now, also, in simplifying your sales process, you cannot forget to remain client focused. What best gets them to their desired state or result? What gets them where they want to go? Make sure you stay focused on that. It's not about what you offer, what you do. You are actually secondary in the process. I know that seems strange to talk about it when you're talking about selling your product or your service, but you don't matter. They do. Their needs do. You are a means to the end, my friend. I need you to understand that. That is just the reality. But sometimes people don't realize that. They think that they are the one that really makes the impact. No, the client makes the impact by the decision. They receive the impact by the product. You're a means to the end. So you have to remain client focused. That should be a part of your simplified sales process. Here's the other thing that you need to do. And this is something that people hate to do, but they need to do it. And this is very important if you want to have a great sales year, is you need to analyze each closing call or interaction, and you need to learn progressively. You need to learn from one interaction to the next and get better at what you do. You are a culmination of things that you have done. It's that way in life, and it's that way in sales. If you don't learn progressively, if you don't learn from things that happen and what you experienced during these sales interactions, you will not get better. You will keep doing the same things. You will keep having the same results, and you will not be happy with it. So how you overcome that is very simple. You analyze each closing call or interaction, and you learn from it. You make decisions to learn from those things. Okay? It's critical to your success. Now, a lot of the work that I've done throughout my experience has been right in this process, whether it's as a coach or an accountability partner for people, because here's the other piece to this. We all have blinders. We all sometimes have tunnel vision, and we don't acknowledge what we have or haven't done. We haven't taken responsibility for our part in why a sales process broke down or didn't turn out with the desired result. Now, I'm not talking about being perfect. I'm talking about being better. I'm talking about getting better every day, every interaction, learning progressively. Most people don't do that. Now, there isn't any secret sauce beyond that. It's experience and learning, making sure that you don't make a $5,000 mistake that turns into a $10,000 mistake that turns into a $100,000 mistake because you're doing the same thing wrong. I'd rather learn, correct it, so I lose the $5,000 opportunity and win the $10,000 one, and then win the $100,000 one. But people don't operate that way. They go make the same mistake over and over again, and they tell themselves a whole laundry list of things that make them feel better about why they didn't get the result that they wanted. Oh, they really weren't a serious prospect, or oh, they really weren't somebody who was my ideal client. Well, if they weren't, why were you talking to them? If they weren't a prospect, why were you at that point? Like, there's certain things, my friend, that you need to take responsibility for. You need to take accountability and put it right in your face and realize that you shouldn't have been asking them to work with you if you hadn't made sure that they were that right person already. But we don't do that as human beings. We are full of hope, and we have goals, and we think we can get there by just continuing to plow ahead. And the reality is, yeah, that's part of it, but most importantly, we need to be smart and learn along the way. We need to make sure we analyze what we do and get feedback on it. You know, the best of the best, and I don't care if you're in sales, if you're a pro athlete, if you're a leader in business, the best of the best work with coaches. They work with accountability partners. Sometimes it's somebody close to them. Sometimes it's somebody who has nothing to do with their business, but gives them pure objectivity. And the reason is they know if they learn just a fraction of what they need from that person, it's going to infinitely improve their results. There's power in that. But people don't do that. What people do, unfortunately, is they keep plowing ahead, keep making the same mistakes. If you want to have an explosive sales year in 2026, you need to make sure you analyze each call and interaction and learn progressively. If I can help you in any way with that, please let me know. It would be my pleasure to help you do that. And finally, and this is something I want to share with everybody because this is another thing that impacts everybody's success. You know, we all have our moments, good and bad. And I want you to really listen to this when I say it, because it is so true when it comes to sales. Look, you either win or you learn. Get this loss mentality out of your brain. You either win or you learn. Even the prospects that you don't convert to clients, they teach you something. The only time you ever really lose is if you don't learn from your mistakes, if you don't learn from those interactions. That's the only time you lose. You either win or you learn. And when you learn progressively, you dramatically increase your likelihood of having your best sales year ever. If you don't learn from every single interaction, my friend, you are making mistakes. If I can help you solve that, please let me know. I would love to help you solve that. See, sales is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Okay. Yes, we sprint towards certain goals, certain objectives, certain things that we need to take care of course. But sales is truly a marathon. Get better at it along the way. Master what you do, perfect your craft, and truly look at it for what it is. It's a marathon and not a sprint. Now, if any of this has resonated with you, if you know personally that you have made some of the mistakes that I've highlighted today or are currently making them, or better yet, you want to have your best sales year ever, but you're a little leery about some of the things we talked about today, I would love to help you. You can reach out to me by reaching out to me on my digital assistant. Just text the word sales to 409-509-7355. You can book some time with me. I opened up some time on my calendar here early this week coming up. I'd be happy to talk with you and help you with sales in any way. I hope that I have served you well today, that this information has been valuable. If you caught it live, thank you for hanging in there with me. If you catch the recording, please reach out if I can support you in any way. This is Joe Beck, founder of The Sales Activist, and this has been creating explosive sales success in 2026. We'll see you soon. Take care.